Hello, you're on the Reddit Reveals channel. Last Wednesday, I watched her sit on the couch and smile at her phone for 14 straight minutes. Not once did she look at me. Not once did she say a word. 14 minutes is long when you're invisible. You start counting cracks in the wall, hearing the hum of your own heartbeat, wondering if the silence is punishment or mercy. I used to fill that silence with stupid jokes, playlists I made for her, questions about her day. Now I don't speak unless I have to. Because she taught me that talking to her is like dropping pennies into a well and never hearing the splash. I didn't write this to rant. I wrote this because I realized something insane. I haven't been angry. Not even once. Just numb. It's not that she cheated. At least I don't have proof. It's worse than that. She simply stopped choosing me. Quietly. Carefully. Like turning off lights one room at a time. She still lives here. Still eats the food I cook. Still takes the laundry I fold. She even lets me pick the movie sometimes, as long as she's scrolling on her phone while it plays. We don't fight. We don't flirt. We don't touch. She used to be allergic to silence. She'd fill every pause with questions, stories, that little hum she made when she was thinking. Now, when I speak, she blinks like I've interrupted something important, even if we're alone. The worst part? She still says, "Love you," when she leaves for work. Not, "I love you." Not with a look. Not with meaning. Just a drive-by version. Something she throws over her shoulder like keys or a jacket. I stopped replying 3 days ago. She hasn't noticed. Or maybe she has, and just doesn't care enough to ask why. I know what some of you are thinking. Grow a spine, Conrad. Leave her. Yeah, I've thought about it. Every damn day. But this isn't a clean betrayal. There's no lipstick on the collar. No second phone. No receipts. Just a slow erosion of someone I thought I knew. You don't walk away from a house because the light bulbs start dying. You stand there, flicking the switch, hoping one still works. But eventually, you stop trying. You start living in the dark. That's where I am now. And she doesn't even notice I'm gone. It happened during the dumbest moment possible, while I was reheating soup. Marley was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open, supposedly finishing a report for work. I was standing over the microwave, watching the seconds tick down. And just as it hit 0:01, she laughed. Not just a smirk or a polite exhale. A full, joyful, face-brightening laugh. The kind I hadn't seen from her in almost a year. And it wasn't directed at me. I didn't ask what was funny. I didn't even turn. I just listened. I kept my eyes on that little window, watching my own face reflected in the microwave door, warped and ghost-like. It hit me in that moment. She'd completely forgotten I was in the room. Not ignored. Forgotten. I placed the bowl on the counter with shaky hands, spoon clinking against ceramic, and sat down across from her. She didn't look up. Her fingers tapped at something quickly on her phone. Then her face dropped into a familiar blankness, like she'd been hit with a wave of guilt or dread. She minimized whatever app she was in, returned to her spreadsheet, and sipped her tea like nothing happened. That's when I finally saw it. Not the betrayal itself, but the routine of it. The choreography. A cycle I wasn't meant to see. She'd been performing this same act, day after day, and God help me, I think I trained her to believe I'd never notice. I tried to speak. My throat tightened. What was so funny? She blinked, startled by the sound of my voice. Her eyes darted between me and her screen. Huh, just now. You laughed. Oh, she smiled, but not at me. It was a meme. I waited for more. She didn't offer it. A meme? I asked, voice cracking a little. She shrugged. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Right. Of course it doesn't. And just like that, she went back to typing. The moment was dismissed. Dismantled. I was, once again, reduced to nothing more than background presence. Air. But I couldn't stop thinking about her face when she minimized the screen. See, Marley doesn't laugh at memes. That's not even me trying to be controlling or judgmental. She just never found internet humor funny. She once called it brain rot for adults who never learned to read. So either she finally evolved, or someone else sent her something that funny. Someone who gets to see her real laugh. Someone who gets the Thursday version of Marley. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there next to her, eyes wide open, listening to her slow, rhythmic breathing. I watched the soft rise and fall of her chest and wondered if she'd even notice if I got up, packed a bag, and walked out the door forever. She didn't roll over to hold me. She didn't reach for my hand like she used to when she sensed I couldn't sleep. She just slept. I sat up at 3:12 a.m., and stared at the bedroom wall. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my notes app and started typing things I was too afraid to say out loud. She only touches me when she needs something. I don't remember the last time she asked how I felt. Her phone brings her more joy than I do. I am not in this relationship. I am adjacent to it. If I disappeared tomorrow, I think she'd only notice when the fridge was empty. I sat there, staring at the list, then added a final line. I think she's already gone. I just haven't left yet. And even then, even after everything, I told myself I needed more proof. God, what's wrong with me? Why am I still here? Something shifted the day I stopped narrating my life to her. It used to be habit. I'd tell her everything. From what I had for lunch to the podcast that made me tear up while I sat in traffic. I'd say things like, you ever think about how everyone's living a full life you'll never know about? Or, I passed that old movie theater on Madison. Remember we saw that awful French film there and you walked out halfway through? Just little things. Bits of myself. Pieces I thought were worth sharing. But somewhere along the way, she stopped catching them. My words would fall between us like pennies in a storm drain. Lost, unacknowledged, never retrieved. And I didn't even notice I'd stopped trying until the silence stretched 3 days long. 3 whole days, and I didn't offer a single anecdote. No questions. No stories. Just logistics. Groceries. Bills. What time the plumber's coming. And on that third night, while I sat on the floor sorting cables like an idiot trying to feel useful, she finally looked up from her phone and said, "You've been quiet." I didn't even flinch. I just kept untangling the knot in my hands. Did something happen at work? She pressed, suddenly studying me like I was a stranger who'd walked in the wrong door. No, I said. Not at work. She stared at me for a second too long, like she wanted to ask a follow-up, but didn't know how. Or worse, didn't care enough to. Then, just like that, her phone lit up again. I saw her pupils flick toward it like reflex. And then, she smiled. One of those faint, guilty little smirks people get when they think no one's watching. She tried to hide it, of course. Tapped the screen off, locked it, flipped it face down. But I'd seen it. And what's worse, she didn't smile at me like that anymore. That night, I went into the bathroom and looked at myself for a long time in the mirror. I wasn't searching for signs of aging or self-pity. I was trying to find him, the version of me she used to love. The guy who made her laugh with nonsense. The guy she used to text midday just to say she missed him. He wasn't there. Just some washed-out version. Pale. Unshaven. Quiet in all the wrong ways. You know what's wild? I started doing little experiments. I'd sit on the couch beside her, silent. No phone, no TV. Just present. Waiting. Seeing how long it would take for her to acknowledge me. One night it took 27 minutes before she even realized I was there. I don't know if you've ever watched someone forget you while looking directly at you, but it's a special kind of cruelty. One they never get charged for. One they never even admit to. She used to ask why I was always hovering. Now she barely noticed when I disappeared into myself completely. But something was building. I could feel it. The more I withdrew, the more she noticed. She started testing the air, offering scraps. One night, she brought home a slice of pumpkin pie from the bakery down the street, the same one I used to drag her to every October. She placed it on the counter like a peace offering. No explanation. I didn't touch it. Next night, she came out of the shower wearing that threadbare t-shirt I always said made her look like a teenager in summer camp. She stood there, half lit by hallway light, and waited for a comment. I gave her none. And then finally, she snapped. "Are you mad at me or something?" It wasn't the words that struck me. It was the timing. After months of emotional erosion, that was the moment she chose to ask. After all the smiles sent to someone else's screen, the ghosting within our own home, the 1,000 silent betrayals I never had proof of, but always felt. I looked up at her from the edge of the bed and said, "What makes you think I still feel anything at all?" Her mouth opened slightly, but she didn't speak. And for the first time in a long time, neither did I. I don't think Marley expected the silence to last. She thought it was a mood, a phase, something I'd eventually snap out of, like a sulking child refusing to eat his vegetables. She didn't realize it wasn't a phase. It was a decision. One I didn't announce. One that didn't require her permission. She tried to bait me with normalcy for a while. Brought home a bottle of that awful red wine she used to fake loving because I liked it. Put on the playlist we used to cook to. Lit the overpriced candles she always saved for special nights. But none of it landed. Because none of it was real. It was a desperate reenactment of a version of us that didn't exist anymore, like trying to resuscitate a dead language by humming its vowels. One evening, she stood behind me while I washed dishes and asked, "Are we okay?" That question, in that tone, so light, so casual, made my stomach twist. I turned off the faucet, dried my hands, and leaned against the sink, refusing to meet her eyes. "You tell me," I said. She didn't answer, just drifted out of the kitchen like smoke. That was the night I started sleeping on the couch. I didn't make a show of it. I didn't announce it or pack up my pillow with a dramatic sigh. I simply stayed there after the movie ended, turned the lights off, and didn't move. She passed me once on the way to the bathroom and paused for just a second. I could hear the hesitation in her footsteps. But again, nothing. No questions. No protests. In the morning, she made coffee but didn't pour me a cup. Passive retaliation, I guess. Or maybe she was testing how far I'd fallen from her mind. I began noticing smaller things. Traces. A hair tie left on the dining table that didn't belong to her. Different cologne in the air when I walked into our bathroom at night. Subtle changes in the way she folded her laundry, like she was preparing for someone else's eyes, not mine. Still no confrontation. Still no explosions. Just decay. It's strange, but I didn't even want to catch her anymore. I didn't want to break into her phone or follow her or prove anything. The betrayal wasn't a moment. It was a timeline, an evolution. And I'd already lived through the worst part of it. The slow realization that the person sleeping beside me had already left long before I even considered packing a bag. That weekend, she got a call late at night. She took it in the hallway. I didn't hear what was said, but when she came back, her hair was down, her keys were in her hand, and she was wearing lipstick. She told me she had to help a friend. Didn't name them. Didn't even ask if I was okay with it. I nodded. Said nothing. She left. I didn't follow. Instead, I walked into our shared closet, sat on the floor, pulled out the storage box labeled winter stuff, and buried beneath scarves and gloves was the shoebox I hadn't touched in over a year. The one full of Polaroids, old receipts, love notes written on napkins, ticket stubs, and a birthday card that said, "You make me feel more alive than breathing." I flipped it open and stared at a photo of her laughing in a bookstore, holding up a copy of a poetry book I swore I'd read, but never did. She looked like someone who loved me back then. Or at least someone who wanted to. That person was gone. Maybe I helped push her away. Maybe I was just the last to notice she'd already found the exit. By the time she came home, I was asleep on the couch again. Or at least pretending to be. I heard her take off her shoes, then pause near the hallway. She stood there for a while. I could feel her staring at me in the dark. I could almost hear her wondering if she'd gone too far, or if I had. She whispered something under her breath. I didn't catch it. Or maybe I wasn't supposed to. She walked to the bedroom alone, closed the door quietly. That was the moment I decided something for real. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't even going to leave. I was going to let her feel exactly what I've been drowning in. And then I'd disappear, slowly, just like she did. The next few days passed like a dream I wasn't invited to be part of. Marley continued performing her version of normal, which now included humming in the kitchen and asking me meaningless questions like, "Did you see the rain today?" Or, "Do we have any more garlic powder?" Things no one really needs answers to. Just placeholders for conversations she no longer knew how to have. I played along. Polite nods. A few MMHMs and yeah, S thrown in at carefully spaced intervals. But I never gave her anything real. No emotion. No opinion. No vulnerability. And for the first time in our relationship, she noticed the silence before I did. One night, I came home from the grocery store, and she was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding a framed photo of us. I hadn't seen her touch it in years. It was the one from our weekend in Sequoia. Me holding her piggyback under the trees, both of us flushed and smiling, like idiots who thought love was enough. She didn't speak as I walked past her, just tracked me with her eyes like I was some wild animal she wasn't sure was dangerous yet. She placed the photo back on the dresser, slowly, like it might shatter if she moved too fast. I waited for her to ask something meaningful, to say anything that mattered. All she said was, "You've been different." And I just replied, "So have you." That was the first time she didn't have a response. No deflection, no denial, just the sound of her swallowing words she didn't want to say. The next morning, she made pancakes. Not frozen, real ones. Blueberry, the kind she always hated the smell of. She placed a plate in front of me, trying to smile like we were still inside some kind of salvageable moment. You used to love these, she said. I looked at the plate, then at her. Yeah, I used to. She didn't eat. Just watched me as I chewed in silence. Watched like she was trying to decode who the hell I had become. But the thing is, I hadn't become anything. I'd just stopped performing. I let the quiet fill the space where my effort used to live. That day, she did something I didn't expect. She took the afternoon off work. She stayed home, cleaned the apartment, lit candles, changed the sheets, put on mascara. Around 5:30, she asked if I wanted to watch something together. Something new. We could find a movie or a show, just chill. I didn't answer immediately. I watched her from the doorway. She looked nervous, almost shaky, and for a split second, I saw something human again. Something I hadn't seen in her in months, uncertainty. But I just said, I've got stuff to do, and walked past her. I sat in the office, staring at nothing for 2 hours, just letting the moment rot between us. I don't even know why I did that. Maybe I wanted her to feel the ache I'd been dragging for a year. Or maybe I was scared if I sat beside her, I'd forgive her too easily. Later that night, I heard the shower running, then silence. Then a sound I couldn't quite place. I got up and walked toward the bathroom. The door was cracked open just slightly, steam billowing out like a slow exhale. She wasn't singing, wasn't humming, wasn't playing her usual podcast. She was sitting on the floor in a towel, knees pulled to her chest, arms wrapped tight. Eyes red. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and didn't care. I didn't say a word. I just stood there and watched the woman who once made me feel like the only man on earth finally realize she was no longer the center of mine. That night, she didn't come to bed. She slept on the couch. I could hear her tossing. Could hear the faint static of a Netflix show she wasn't really watching. She was starting to feel the weight now. The weight of her own detachment. The echo chamber she built brick by brick and then called distance. Funny how silence, when you weaponize it right, doesn't sound empty anymore. It sounds like justice. It started with the drawer. I opened the nightstand one morning to grab earbuds and found something that didn't belong. A folded receipt from a hotel downtown. Room 604. 2 cappuccinos. A fruit plate. Dated 3 weeks ago. The day she'd told me she was working from home because she wasn't feeling well. I didn't react. Just stared at the ink, still fresh enough to look recent, but far enough away that she'd forgotten it existed. I placed the receipt back where I found it, closed the drawer quietly, and continued getting ready like nothing happened. I wasn't going to confront her. That would have given her something to push against, something to deny. I wanted her off balance. I wanted her to confess without knowing what I knew. That night, she made dinner again. 3 nights in a row now. Spaghetti this time. Burned garlic bread. She barely touched her food. Just sat there watching me chew, waiting for me to break the silence. I didn't. And that was what did it. She put down her fork mid-bite, leaned forward slightly, and said, "Can I ask you something?" I nodded, but didn't look up. "Do you hate me?" I let the silence sit between us for an extra 5 seconds. Then I finally met her eyes and said, "I don't think you care what I feel anymore." She flinched. And for the first time since this emotional autopsy began, she looked like someone who wanted to say something real. "I haven't been okay," she said, voice quieter now, like she was afraid the words might backfire. "For a while. You think I haven't noticed?" I asked. She looked down at her plate. "No, I know you have." There was a moment, a long one, where I genuinely thought she might open the vault and start telling the truth. Maybe not everything, but something. I wanted her to. God, I needed her to. Because despite everything, some part of me was still clinging to the hope that she was just broken, not cruel. But she didn't say anything else. No confessions. No explanations. Just that empty statement. "I haven't been okay." As if that absolved her from all the things she'd let rot between us. So I gave her nothing in return. Later that night, she stood in the bedroom doorway watching me fold clothes. Her eyes were red again, like she'd been silently crying in the bathroom. I didn't acknowledge her. "I lied," she said quietly. I paused mid-fold. "About what?" She hesitated. "Last Thursday. I wasn't at Jen's." I didn't respond. I just needed space. Still nothing. She took a step forward. "Say something." I looked at her for a long time, and finally said, "Why would I?" That was it. No yelling. No crying. Just facts laid bare between two people who used to finish each other's sentences and now couldn't fill a room with anything but tension. The next day, she started leaving sticky notes on the fridge. Have a good day. Let me know if you want anything from the store. One even said, I'm sorry. I know I've been gone even when I was here. That one made me sit down, because that was the closest thing to truth I'd seen from her in months. But it was still only part of the story, like she was dripping honesty out in fragments, trying not to drown in her own guilt too quickly. I started noticing more. Her phone never buzzed anymore, not like it used to. I think she turned off notifications or changed names in her contacts. She cleared her browser history every night, changed her passwords, but I wasn't chasing the proof anymore. That was the old me. The new me didn't need evidence. I had instinct, and instinct never lies. She was unraveling, slowly, walking through the wreckage she helped create, hoping to find something left worth saving. But all I saw was ash. And ashes don't rebuild, they just remind you something burned. She hadn't even realized yet, but the version of me she used to lie to? That man was gone. And what scared me most was, I didn't miss him at all. It happened on a Wednesday. Quiet. Overcast. The kind of day where everything feels just a bit slower, a bit heavier. Marley was running late for work, muttering to herself, throwing on makeup at the kitchen counter while scrolling her phone, trying to be two people at once. Calm and collected on the outside, unraveling and frantic underneath. She asked if I could find her gray tote bag, the one she claimed she hadn't used in months. I found it stuffed behind our coat rack, dusty and slouched over like it had been hiding in shame. I reached in without thinking, just trying to help, still playing my part in the script. But what I pulled out wasn't hers. It was a key card, not for our building, not for her office. It was labeled Belmore Executive, Floor 9. A place I'd only heard about in passing, a boutique office space downtown people rented by the hour. Marley didn't work there. She never had. There was also a folded-up note jammed at the bottom of the bag. I don't know if she meant to keep it or just forgot it was there. It was barely a sentence, written on a napkin. See you again soon. Thursdays make it hard to go home. No name. Just that. I stood there staring at the words, feeling a strange calm wash over me. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Something else. Something quieter and colder. Like the numbness you feel when you step out into a winter morning and your body hasn't caught up with the pain yet. I didn't confront her. Not then. Instead, I placed the bag on the counter without a word and said, "Here." She smiled quickly, thanked me, kissed my cheek, and walked out the door with the key card still inside. She never noticed. That night, I sat on the floor of our bedroom with the napkin in one hand and an old photo of us in the other. We were smiling, arms wrapped around each other, taken during a weekend trip to the coast. It felt like another lifetime. A life someone else lived. A version of me who still believed in her. When she came home late, again, she tried to act like she'd been at a yoga class. She even changed into workout clothes before walking through the door. Left her hair wet to sell the lie. I didn't say a thing. Didn't ask where she'd been. Just looked at her, really looked at her, and felt the final thread between us snap. The next morning, I wasn't there when she woke up. I'd taken the car, drove to Belmore Executive, parked across the street, and just watched. I didn't expect anything. I wasn't looking for drama. I just needed to see it for myself. Proof that the world I'd been living in wasn't just cracked, it was fake. At 9:42 a.m., she arrived. Alone. But at 10:06 a.m., a man in a charcoal jacket entered the building. I didn't know him. I didn't need to. He wasn't touchy. Wasn't obvious. But when she came down to the lobby to meet him, the way her face lit up told me everything. I'd seen that expression before. Years ago, back when it was reserved for me. She laughed. She touched his arm. And then they disappeared into the elevator. I stayed in the car. Frozen. Not surprised. Not angry. Just done. I drove home. Took a shower. Sat on the edge of the bed for over an hour staring at the wall, wondering how long I'd been mourning something that had already died. And still, I didn't pack a bag. I didn't explode. I didn't even cry. I just waited. Because I wasn't leaving in a fury. That would have given her too much meaning. Too much drama. No. I was going to leave the same way she did. Quietly. Softly. Without looking back. It was a Sunday morning when I finally left. Not in the middle of a screaming match. Not after a final betrayal. Just quietly. Like smoke slipping through a cracked window. The apartment was still. Marley was asleep in the bedroom, curled into the farthest side of the bed like she had been for months. I stood in the hallway, watching her for a long moment, and realized something I didn't expect. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her. Not even at myself. I was just done bleeding in a place that never bandaged me. I had spent so much time waiting for the perfect exit, some dramatic moment where everything would come crashing down and she'd fall to her knees begging me to stay. But the truth is, not every heartbreak ends with closure. Sometimes it ends in stillness. In a quiet decision made one morning with birds chirping outside and the scent of coffee in the air, I packed lightly. A few clothes, some notebooks, my guitar, and that old shoebox full of letters and photos. Not because I wanted to keep them, but because I needed to say goodbye on my own terms. I didn't leave a note. I didn't send a text. There was nothing left to explain that she didn't already know deep down. As I walked out, I took one last look at the apartment. The place where I learned how to love, and then, slowly, painfully, how to let go. I didn't feel triumphant, just free. It took her 2 days to reach out. I was already staying in a quiet little rental on the coast, waking up to the sound of waves instead of silence. Her message was short. "Are you okay?" I didn't reply, not because I wanted to punish her, but because I was finally okay. And that didn't require her permission. In the weeks that followed, something strange happened. My world didn't fall apart. It opened up. I started running again, cooking for myself, listening to music without wondering if it made her roll her eyes. I read poetry. I called old friends. I remembered what my own laugh sounded like. And then, one afternoon, sitting alone on the sand with the sun setting behind the hills, I smiled without forcing it. No bitterness, no sadness, just peace. Because I had loved her fully. I had stayed long after I should have left. I gave her everything, and then gave her space. And in the end, when I had nothing left to give, I gave myself back to myself. And that was enough.